These are assembly instructions for my various ring pop boxes. So for this one, for the main shapes, I've put the outside of my cardstock, or the prettier side, down on the mat when I was cutting it so that I could see the score lines. So I'm just folding down on all the score lines. There's a square score line in the center. That's just for positioning. And I'm not folding down on that one. I'm bringing up the 4 walls of my box, and then I'm folding those tabs inwards. All the other tabs get folded in the opposite direction as well. I've got the panels that are at the top and the bottom, and the panels that are on the left and on the right. The ones on the left and the right have this trapezoid shape, and the ones on the top and the bottom have a rectangle. So I'm going to start with the ones at the top and the bottom. I'm putting glue on that top tab from the score line to the end. And then I'm going to fold on not the first score line, but the second score line, bringing it down to one side of that scored square in the center. And I'm adhering it to the center of my box. So that forms one wall of my box. So I'm doing that for the bottom one as well. I'm putting glue on the tab from the score line to the edge. So I have the score line for the tab, the next score line, and the score line after that. That's the one I'm folding on. So my second wall is in position. So now I'm rotating my piece, and I have a tab on the side here, and then a tab on the side of the part that's closest to me. And then I'm putting glue on that tab that's closest to me. I'm lifting up my side, applying pressure so that my glue takes. I want the edge of that panel to be right against the score line of my tab. And for this side, I'm lifting up that side. From the inside, I'm applying pressure on that tab. So the cut edge of the side is right along the score line of my tab. And then I'm folding my side. I'm gluing down my tab, and it should fit right between the 2 other tabs. So that's going to form a square in the center. So I'm going to rotate that and do the exact same thing on the 4th side. So I'm putting glue on this tab, folding the side tab over, putting glue on it, putting glue on the tab that's at the end, and then I'm lifting my side up, gluing in the tabs. I'm putting pressure from the inside and gluing this tab in, and I'm tucking this one inside the wall that I've already built, and I'm applying pressure to it. And then I'm wrapping my side around and bringing my tab down into the center of my shape. And so then I have the frame pieces for the top of my box, and this is foil cardstock. I'm putting glue on the underside of it, bringing my corners together so that they're nicely mitered, and then I'm gluing my frame piece right on top, trying to center it as best I can. And then I have a thinner frame piece to glue on top of it. I'm just covering the underside of it in glue, and then I'm just gluing it on top. So for the 4 sides and for the bottom, I have decorative pieces as well. I could have put these on before I assembled my box, but I decided to do it after. I'm just gluing my decorative cardstock onto my foil cardstock base, and then just gluing it, trying to center it as best I can onto the walls of my box. And then I'm doing that with all 4 sides and the bottom. All right, so that's half of my box done. I have another half that I'm going to assemble the exact same way. So now that I've assembled both sides, I have the hinge piece for my box. I'm just folding on the score line, and I'm folding in both directions. And I made a little mistake in that I should have only decorated 3 sides of my box. I'm going to fix it by adding another layer on top, because my decorative layer actually camouflages my hinge. So I'm going to put glue all over one side of my hinge. What I should have done is decorated only 3 sides. Now I want to center my hinge on my side, and if I fold it in half, I can position it so that it's right along the top of my box, like so. And then to cover up my mistake, I'm putting a second layer of those decorative panels right on top. So you would just be putting a first layer instead of the second layer. So here's my hinge piece, and I'm putting glue on the part that's towards the inside of my box. I'm positioning my second half exactly on top. I want the sides to be nice and even, the front to be nice and even, and then I'm pressing my hinge piece onto the side like so. I'm opening it and I'm applying pressure between the two boxes so my hinge takes. And I'm going to quickly cover up my goof. Then you'd be gluing down the decorative panel right on top of the hinge. So then I have the insert for the inside of my box. I'm folding down on all the score lines. So I've got the two larger tabs at the top. I'm putting glue from the score line to the end on both of them. Then I'm folding the side downwards, folding the tab inwards, and folding that back panel down. I want the cut edge of the back panel to be right along the score line of my tab. Then I'm going to do that with the right hand side as well, tucking my tab inwards, and the cut edge of my back panel is right along the score line of my tab. So next I'm going to do the same thing at the front. I'm putting glue on both of those smaller tabs, and then I'm lowering my front panel down, and I want the edges of my front panel to be right along the score line of my smaller tab. I'm doing that on both sides. So then I have the decorative panel for the top of my insert, and I'm just putting glue on the underside of it. I'm just gluing it, trying to center it as best I can. I'm going to flip it over and use my bone folder to spread that glue. And then I'm just inserting that within my box. So then I have my ring pop, and I'm inserting it inside. And there you have it. A fancy box for my ring pop. All right, so on to box number 2. I'm going to start with this piece that has 2 score lines on it. And I have some ribbon. I've cut 2 8-inch lengths of ribbon. I'm using my craft mat to find the center. And then I'm putting some double-sided tape. I'm just laying down one end of my ribbon on top of that double-sided tape. And then I'm going to rotate my piece so that I'm looking at the other end, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other end. Putting a piece of double-sided tape and then gluing down one end of my ribbon as centered as possible. So next I have the decorative panels to go on top of that piece. I'm just gluing down my layers. So I have my patterned cardstock on top of some silver foil cardstock, making sure they're the same width. So I have 2 of them that are taller. Those are going to go on the end, and the smaller one goes in the center. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of my panels. I'm just gluing them down, and there should be an even border all the way around between the edge of my card and the score lines. And I'm doing that for all 3 decorative panels. So then I have the box pieces themselves, and there are 2 of them that are identical. So I'm folding down on all the score lines. I have the diagonal score lines here, and then I have this bottom piece with the vertical score lines. I'm going to fold those tabs inwards and put glue all over them. Then I'm lifting that panel upwards, and then each side gets lifted up towards the tab. I want the cut edge of my side to be right against the score line of my tab, and I'm going to do that on both sides. So next I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge of my piece all over that part, and then I'm folding at that score line and gluing that whole panel to the interior of my box. I'm going with my bone folder, and I'm just spreading that glue. I do that on the left hand side as well. I'm putting glue from the diagonal score line right to the top of my piece, and then I'm folding it inwards and laying that part down on my craft mat and spreading the glue. So now I have the flap at the front. I'm putting glue all over it, and then I'm folding it inwards and spreading that glue. So this is the second half of my box, and I'm going to assemble it the exact same way. Okay, so I have my decorated piece with its ribbons. I'm making sure that the flap that I have folded inwards is on the bottom of my box. I'm putting glue on the underside. I'm placing it on the bottom rectangle of my decorated panel. I want it to be right up against the score line. I'm folding it upwards just to make sure that it's placed right against the score line at the back, but then it's centered horizontally. So I want an even border on the right and on the left. I'm taking my second box, and I'm putting glue all over one of the square sides of it. I'm placing it right on top of the other half. The sides, the front and the top are matching up. And then I'm bringing that decorative panel over, and then I'm going to open it again and spread all that glue. My box looks like this, but when I close it, I've got 2 triangles that close onto one another like so. I'm making a bow in my ribbon to seal my box. So this is the insert for my box, and I'm just folding down on all the score lines on it. So I'm putting glue on the 2 large tabs at the top. I'm folding that panel downwards, and then I'm folding the sides so that the cut edge of the side meets up with the score line on my tab. And I'm doing that on both sides. And then I'm putting glue on the small tabs that are at the front. I'm tucking them inside my box. I want that cut edge to be right against the score line of my tab on both sides. I'm putting glue on the back panel of my insert. I'm sliding it in using a craft dowel and applying a little bit of pressure to make sure that my glue takes. So I'm inserting my ring in my box, and then I'm just pulling my box shut, and then I'm just tying the ribbon in a bow. So now for my third box, I have 2 identical pieces. I'm going to take one of them and I'm folding down on all the score lines for it. I've got the score lines all along the length of it, and then I have the tabs on one side. And so then I have my decorative layers. I've used some foiled cardstock, and then I've adhered some foiled pattern cardstock on top of it, and I'm putting glue on the underside, and I'm gluing it between the score lines and above the tab. And I have 8 of them for this panel, and I'm just going to glue down all 8 of them. So now that I've decorated my panel, I'm going to put glue on the tab that's on one side, and I'm bringing the other end around and I'm gluing it right to the score line on my tab. So the cut edge of the other end is glued right to the score line. Then I have all these tabs on the bottom. I'm covering all 8 tabs on the bottom in glue, and then I'm folding them inwards so that they're all pointing towards the center of my shape. And then I'm laying my shape down on my craft mat. There are 4 octagons that are exactly the same size in the file. I'm taking one of them and I am dropping it into my shape. The flat edges of my octagon are going to follow along the flat edges of my walls. I'm just going in with my bone folder and I'm spreading the glue. And then I'm going to flip my piece over and I'm taking another one of my octagon pieces. I'm covering the underside in glue. And then I'm gluing that over and matching up those straight edges and gluing that down. So then I can flip it over and spread the glue again with my bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use a ruler or something with a nice clean straight edge. And then I have the foil cardstock and the patterned cardstock. I'm just gluing the pattern one on top of the foil. I'm putting glue on the underside of it, and then I'm just gluing it down, trying to maintain an even border all the way around. All right, so I have a second piece to assemble the exact same way. So now that I have my 2 halves assembled, I'm taking my little hinge piece, it looks like this, and I am folding on that center score line back and forth. I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge on one half, and then I'm taking one of my box pieces and I'm looking for where the join is. So this is where I joined it with that tab, and I'm placing my hinge piece so that it's between the score lines, and when I fold it in half, the score line is right at the top of my box. And then I'm putting glue on the other half, and I'm taking my other box. So I have my join piece here, I have my join piece there. I'm lining up the score lines and folding my hinge down onto my second box. So then I have the insert, so I'm starting with the piece that looks like a sun. I'm folding down on all the score lines for it. And then I have a band with score lines along it, folding down on all those score lines. So I'm going to take my sun-shaped piece and I'm putting glue on the tab that's at the bottom. I'm matching it up with the smallest rectangle on my band. So as you can see, it goes down, and then there's a small rectangle, and then it goes up again. I'm matching the top edge of that small rectangle to the score line on the tab of my sun-shaped piece. And then I'm putting glue on the tab that's to the left of it, and I'm wrapping that strip around. The score line on my strip should be right at the edge of my tab. And I'm just working my way around, just gluing that strip in until I have one rectangle left. And now I'm going to do that on the other side, putting glue along the tabs, and then just gluing my strip in, matching the cut edge of my strip to the score line on my tabs. So now I'm at that last tab at the top. I'm going to put glue all over the last tab, and I'm putting glue all along the tab that's on my strip piece. And I'm going to fold the piece that's on my left over till it reaches the score line on my tab, and I'm gluing that top piece in place as well. And then I have the panel that gets adhered on top. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of it. This is more that foil cardstock. I'm just gluing that down. So I'm going to open my box. The tallest part of the insert piece goes towards the back of my box. So I'm just going to lower that in. Oh, that's an interesting color. And I'm just inserting it into my box. So these are my 3 ring boxes for my ring pop candy.